So I'm delighted to be catching up with Louise Worsley. Good morning, Louise.
Good
Louise,
morning, Penny.
Louise is a first aid trainer and you run public courses in Marlborough, but you can also deliver courses to anybody basically across the area and for all ages. So you do school children right through to adults.
Exactly. So various small businesses who come to my open courses in Marlborough. But if you've got a large enough business, then I will come to you and run a private course. And the same goes for schools. So teaching the teachers on inset days, but also primary and secondary school children as well.
Oh, that must be lots of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Lots of practicals, lots of high energy. And it's actually, first aid is coming onto the curriculum from September. So all schools will need to be offering some first aid training to their pupils. And so primary school children, by the time they leave, need to know about calling 999, about putting pressure onto a bleed, and just generally being able to help if they're unconscious but in a recovery position, that kind of thing. Secondary school leavers will need to know CPR, defibs, and then a bit more advanced sort of head injuries and bits and bobs like that. So I can help all the schools tick that box as well.
Blimey. I wanted to talk to you today specifically about summer first aid that might be useful for all of us, but has COVID affected the curriculum, what you teach people now? Do you include it?
Very much so. So the big thing that has changed is CPR. The worry is that if it's someone you don't know and they might be infected, then you don't want to be giving them rescue breaths. So you can actually put a bit of material or something over their mouth, because as you do the compressions, you might be exhaling some aerosols, as they call it. So some air might be coming out. So actually cover up their mouths, but still do the chest compressions if someone is not breathing normally, because that can still help save their life, but obviously minimize the risk to you.
Yeah, of course. So in a normal summer, obviously we've got our normal summer stuff going on as well as COVID to deal with, and I think probably first on the list is bee and wasp stings.
Those little buzzy blighters, exactly. They've been around now for a couple of months. They all sort of wake up as the spring starts, and they're around for the rest of the summer. So the big thing to point out at the beginning is that a bee will leave their sting in you, whereas a wasp won't. So the first thing to check if you think you have been stung is whether the actual stinger is in you. If it is, then you need to scrape it off. And the best thing, if you've got a long fingernail, that works, or a credit card. Do not be tempted to use tweezers, because actually in the sting is where their little bit of the poison sac is. It's like a little tube, the stinger. So if you get tweezers and pinch it in order to pull the sting out, you just squeeze the poison into your body. So that's why it's much best to scrape it rather than squeeze it.
Okay.
If it's a wasp sting, there won't be a sting there, and you will just get the symptoms of a sting. So it might be a bit red, it might be a bit swollen, it might be a bit painful, a bit itchy. So with all of that, you just want to get a cold pack onto it. If you've got one of those, sort of actual classic first aid ones, they're great. You sort of scrunch them and it creates a cold pack. Otherwise, just go and get your freezer pack, your wine bottle cooler, works exactly the same.
Yeah.
But what you must do is wrap it in some material, because, these are very cold. So if you actually put them onto skin, it'll stick. So just, get a tea towel or something and put a bit of material around it, not too thick, and then hold it onto the skin so it doesn't stick. You can take some antihistamine. If you've got small children, you can't give antihistamine under the age of 2, then just some calamine cream. It's not the old glass bottle with the stinky pink liquid anymore. It's now just an aqueous cream, so you can just rub a bit of that into it for small children. Otherwise, take some antihistamine. Do monitor for any signs of anaphylaxis. If it's a severe allergic reaction, actually their whole body swells, including their tongue and their throat, and so they'll have some breathing difficulties.
Because the first time somebody gets stung, you don't know if you're going to have an allergic reaction to it, do you? So if it's a young child. Yeah.
So, you know, anaphylaxis didn't really exist kind of 10 years ago. I don't know, allergies to various, you know, penicillin and other medication did. But all these sort of food and animal allergies have just hugely gone up in numbers, sadly. And, you know, I have 2 small children. And so when I was weaning them and as they were growing up, I made sure I did give them a bit of peanut butter. I did give them a bit of prawn, a bit of, you know, all the classic things that people are allergic to. But the one thing I can't do in a controlled way is, you know, get them stung by a bee or a wasp. So my son has been stung, so I know that he's not allergic, but, you know, my daughter hasn't been, so I'm still waiting for that moment. And yes, don't know.
No,
So.
it's, I know people who have to carry EpiPens with them because, you know, they get, and I think if you are allergic, sadly, the more you get stung, the worse the reaction is. It kind of builds up in your body rather than getting more used to it, apparently.
It varies. So some people sort of grow into allergies, some people grow out of allergies. It's such a complicated subject that, yeah, beyond the remit of this chat.
No, I mean, without digressing too much, do you know why they're becoming more prevalent these days? Is there a theory?
There isn't. There's lots of theories. There isn't a hard line, exact truth. The main theories is that we don't eat dirt anymore. You know, we live in such a sterile, you know, everything's so much cleaner, packaged foods, processed foods, you know, trying to buy a carrot that still has mud on is quite hard unless you actually, you know, go directly to a grower. So it's all those chemicals and pesticides and everything. That's, you know, that's the theory, and which one I can understand, but it's not entirely proven yet.
No, okay. Sting, so basically cold on directly onto the red burn, you know, the red sting, sorry, that's quite
a scrape off the sting if there is one there.
So
then a wrap,
cold basically it anaesthetizes it and it helps the swelling go down, does it? Okay.
Yeah, exactly that.
And whether it's bee or wasp, that's the same. Because I used to think, oh, you've got to put alkaline on and one you've got to put acid on, and I could never remember which way round it is. So an ice pack's much easier.
Keep it simple. You've got a red, swollen, itchy area. If there's no sting in it, then a wrapped ice pack straight onto it. Take some antihistamine and you'll be okay.
Okay. And if there is a sting, you just scrape it off as much as you can. Yeah, lovely. Okay, what next on your list of summer things?
Well, you know, this week the weather forecast looks wonderful. So I thought actually we should do a bit about sunburn, but also, you know, the wonderful weather gets the barbecues out again and the fire pits out again and everything else. So, you know, actually, regardless of the heat source, we, you know, if we get burnt, our skin goes ouch and doesn't want to cope with it. So whether it is the sun, whether it is a barbecue, whether it's, say, a fire pit, you always need to run it under cool water, not cold. That is a big myth, because the amount of time to actually run it under the water has been increased recently to 20 minutes. So there is no way you can hold any digit or limb or whatever's been burnt under a cold tap for 20 minutes. You know, it goes numb and then it goes almost painful. It's, you know, it's not good. So a cool tap. So the best thing is if you've got a mixer tap, you know, on your kitchen sink or something, put the cold on full and then the hot on just a little bit, just to take that sting out of it. Because as long as the water is cooler than the burn, so, you know, the actual temperature on your skin, it will just remove that heat energy from it, okay? And it needs to be running water. You can't just, you know, put your finger in a cup of water because it will just warm up the water.
I was going to ask you that because I'd never stand with my finger under a tap for 20 minutes, but I would sit on the sofa and put my finger in a cup, so.
So do you have, if you haven't done the full 20 minutes, you know, we're cooking tea, we touch a saucepan or something, we do a couple of minutes under a tap and then we're like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. In the morning, you get that bit of hardened skin, and that's because you've left some heat energy in. So if you actually do the full amount, there's no evidence of the burn.
Oh, really? Okay. So it would prevent you blistering, would it, if you kept it in longer?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a blister is an intermediate burn. So a superficial burn is when it just goes red. So if you treat it properly, it will just go away. Intermediate is when it blisters, and so please never pop blisters. That's always one of those things we can't help ourselves. But as soon as you do that, you release out the little cushion that stops it being painful, and you also open up to infection. So just, you know, cool it for 20 minutes and then just put a, you know, a plaster on. If you've got a blister plaster, so much better, but otherwise just any old plaster. And you know, and then leave it.
The old remedies of butter and cling film.
No. Well, no, cling film's okay. So butter, if you think what you've done when you've burnt, you've you know, you've superheated your skin, and so if you put butter on a hot surface, it cooks. So it's only ever going to make it worse. Cling film is good because what cling film does is stops it drying out, so it stops it being painful. So if you have a full depth burn, which is the worst type, when you've actually burnt down, you know, through the skin, broken the skin, it's gone down, then you can use burn dressings, which are brilliant. They're like a gel. It's like a little pad and it's soaked in gel. And the gel is, it's kind of like mainly sort of aloe vera and those kind of properties. So it cools, it relieves the pain, it rehydrates it because the skin is all, you know, dehydrated, which actually is where the pain comes from. And so, you know, these are great to pop on that, and then you put cling film over the top of that.
You wouldn't put cling film directly on your skin.
You can do, if you don't have a burns dressing, then it stops the air getting to it. So it's going to help with preventing any infection, and it's also going to help with any pain. But the key thing with burns is to get them to a specialist, you know, big burn, you know, full depth burns, is to get them to a specialist burns unit.
If you have a bad burn that is that bad that you think it might need more than just 20 minutes under a cold running tap, what's the best way to get advice if you're panicking at home?
So you can call 111 and just speak to it's normally a nurse who takes those initial calls. That's just the NHS advice line. And they can, you know, ask you some questions to assess how bad it is. You know, if you have a burns dressing at home, you can pop one of those on. If you've got some cling film, you can pop one of those on. It sort of depends how it feels after 20 minutes under the cool tap. And also depends whether the skin has been broken or not.
So if it was broken, would you still put it directly under water?
Probably not. If it's reached that point where it is the full depth, you know, the speed of getting them to a specialist burns unit is what's key. So I'd probably just do the burns dressing and the cling film and, you know, just get going.
Okay, but 111, or if you're desperate, obviously 999, they might give you some advice over the phone.
Exactly. Sadly, they're waiting for ambulances in rural areas. Quite often, if you're able to, it's quicker just to get someone to drive you. And you know, you can get there and be seen a lot quicker than an ambulance. After all, is only really a taxi, unless you have, you know, severe injury or you're any issues with breathing or consciousness or anything that requires, you know, instant medication. Then you know, there's not a lot they can do for the likes of a burn.
Okay, so we've done stings, we've done burns. What's next on your summer list of delights?
So sort of linked to the sunburn, I thought actually the whole dehydration and heat exhaustion that can then lead to heat stroke is something just to mention. Running around outside, or not even running around, sunbathing, you know, it's lovely out there at the moment, but we need to make sure that we do stay hydrated. We are, I don't know, especially if you're having your barbecue and you're, you know, having a couple of beers, then you consider drinking some, you know, pints of water as well, if that's an option. The best way to tell whether you're dehydrated actually is the colour of your pee. So that's not great when you're outside, but you know, if you're inside, it needs to be nice and pale. I always think of a nice prosecco or a nice, you know, Sauvignon Blanc, something like that. So that's the ideal colour. If it's, you know, anything darker than that, then obviously you are dehydrated.
If you're starting to look like beer, then you're in trouble.
Then you definitely need, lager, a bitter in particular, yes, that'd be bad. Then obviously we need to be drinking some more water. If you're not doing too much exercise, then on a hot day, aim for 2 litres of water a day. So, my water bottle here is, that's about a litre. So make sure I've got through a couple of those. But as soon as you're out, kicking football or taking the dog for a walk or anything like that, then you're doing exercise, therefore you're sweating, and so therefore you need to drink some more. So maybe up to 5 litres of water a day, which it's a lot. But that's the best way to look after ourselves. The sort of symptoms you'd be looking for signs of heat exhaustion: headaches, just general sort of sluggishness, that kind of lethargy where you just like, don't really want to go and do anything. Get yourself into shade, drink some water. You might even get some muscle cramps. But with heat exhaustion, your body can cope. Those headaches will make you go and lie down and stop running around. Feeling really hot will make you go into the shade or go inside. And you'll be sweating. Stroke is always untreated heat exhaustion. So you have to sort of go through the heat exhaustion stage before you reach heat stroke. And heat stroke is when, it can be life-threatening. It's when, your sweating almost stops as well. So you get very hot but dry skin because it's, sort of not got enough water left in your body to be sweating. So obviously, temperature's really high. You can get to the point where people even have seizures. So please keep an eye on yourselves, keep an eye on your loved ones.
Yes, there have been awful cases with a couple of army guys who died after doing exercise in the heat. Really sad.
So they're carrying big packs and going over the Brecon Beacons, and having enough water, and the water stops being spread out. But it all comes down to the amount of exercise and the temperature of the sun, the temperatures of the air. So indeed, look after yourselves.
And I know with children sometimes it's hard to get them to drink enough, and our neighbour gave me a tip, and I would love to hear your opinion on it. If you've got a child who won't drink, feed them jelly, because it's 99.9% water. They don't realise it's a liquid, but they just think they're eating jelly, but actually that's getting
yes. I obviously am not a fan of the amount of sugar that's in jelly. So there's no way you're going to get 2 litres of water in through just jelly. But I guess they are smaller. Ice lollies is normally my key one. So we have those little like ice lolly molds. So I make up a weak elderflower squash. I put some berries in the molds as well, blueberry or raspberry or something like that, and then fill it with the elderflower squash and freeze that. And then they love those. They go down an absolute treat. So, no fizzy drinks or, well, not that the children will be drinking tea and coffee, but they don't count. So it needs to be vast majority water. Watermelon, that's another good way of getting water into them. So as long as there's not too much sugar, because then actually a lot of water is needed to process the sugar and flush that through your system. So the closer it can be to just water, the best.
And finally, I think you were going to do about DIY cutting, people cutting themselves.
Well, the joy of lockdown is that everybody's houses and gardens, are looking wonderful. So whether it's, been doing little jobs around the house, doing a DIY, or you've been out in the garden and, digging up things, I expect there's been quite a few cuts going on, and that will continue throughout the summer. You now have your beautiful garden. Let's maintain it. And so yes, a quick chat about any big bleeds. So I'm not talking about the little, the scrape that you can just sort of dab and maybe put a plaster on and that's fine. It's sadly the big bleeds where blood is spurting out and you're a little bit concerned. So the main treatment for that is pressure, and the best thing to do is to grab any bit of material. So whether it's the tea towel, the t-shirt sitting on the sides, your scarf, whatever you've got, and put pressure onto that wound.
Directly on top.
Directly onto the wound. Have a quick check that there's no little objects in there. Obviously, if there's any broken glass or little impaled objects, you don't want to be putting pressure on. But have a quick check there's nothing there, and then putting that pressure on, because that is what will stop the bleed. It's what allows the blood to clot, so actually turn from a liquid to a solid. And that clotting process will then form the scab, all the rest of it. So pressure is your key thing. Depending on the amount of blood, they might be feeling a bit dizzy. So, sit them down, lie them down, so you're not dealing with, any other injuries as they fall, that kind of thing. We always used to also elevate, and the treatment, the vast majority of the successful treatment comes from the pressure. So if you can, if it is simply like an arm or a leg, that you can elevate a bit so that the blood has to flow uphill from the heart, then that will help a little bit, but never at the expense of the amount of pressure.
Okay, so pressure is the priority.
Pressure is the key, and it's for 10 minutes. That's how long it takes to clot. So you're keeping that pressure on for 10 minutes, with a bit of elevation if you can. And then after 10 minutes, just have a little look. If it has stopped, great. You can then go and get a wound dressing. If it's nearly stopped, then maybe, do another couple of minutes. If it really has made absolutely no difference, then they need to head off to A&E because they're going to need stitches, which is obviously beyond our remit. But if you've got it under control, then grab yourself a wound dressing or, a crepe bandage with a square dressing. These ones are great. They're just, one use only. They're sterile until they're opened. They come in different sizes. So once you rip them open, they are a pad attached to a bandage. So there's the pad, it's got a short bit of bandage, and then there's the long bit of bandage. So you just pop the pad on the wound and then unroll this nice and snugly so it maintains that pressure. You're not trying to cut off all the circulation. And then just tie them a little knot.
Okay. Do you put any like Germaline or any, just a dry dressing right on top? Okay.
So if it's been bleeding, it's basically been cleaning itself.
Okay.
It's like turning a tap on. The beasties can't crawl in if the blood's pouring out. We are also very anti any kind of antiseptic chemicals these days. Okay. If you've got just a small cut, the best thing to clean it with is just water. If it's drinking quality water, so use a tap, use I don't know if you've got any of these. I carry these in my first aid kit, little sort of saline pods, contact lens bottles, solution bottles, anything just to squeeze it, high pressure water to kind of jet wash it out. That actually is by far the best. Okay. Because we are made up of so much water, it means the wound will just kind of heal itself much happier. Whereas if you rub in any kind of, the Savlon, the Germaline, all those chemicals, you just kill all of the cells, and so it takes it a lot longer to heal. It's far more like a scar. So the only times it'd be good to use, antiseptic creams and things is if you haven't got copious amount of drinking quality water available, basically.
Okay, that's interesting. And what if you said if there is any glass or grit or something in there that you can't get out, it's too painful to get out?
Take it out. No, never take anything out.
Okay.
Because the treatment is for the bleeding is direct pressure. The size and shape of the wound is exactly the same as the size and the shape of the object that's stuck in it. So if you picture it's a twig or something stuck in, then that twig is or a knife, or thinking worst cases, that object is exactly the same size and shape as the wound. So as soon as you take it out, then you release that pressure and you're going to make the bleeding much worse. So you just need to stabilize it in place. So you can use padding around the side of it to stop it moving at all, and then try and secure that in place enough to get them to A&E to where it will be removed safely.
Okay, lovely. Well, boy, I think that's enough to
I could go on for hours. There's lots of other things I could talk about, but yes, we have had a good chat.
So the trouble with, I've done first aid courses several times in my life, but unless you put it in practice, you really worry that you're not going to remember in the heat of the moment. So it's just refresher courses, watching videos.
So a lot of it comes down, yes, to confidence, and confidence comes from knowledge. However, none of it is actually, I don't know, to use a well-used phrase, rocket science. A lot of it is common sense. Like, oh, someone's bleeding, I need to put some pressure on it. Oh, someone's burnt, I need to, run it underwater. Quite often what you think is right is right. And so just having the confidence just to step forward and do something. there's also a worry these days that, you know, we can get sued if we get it wrong and all that kind of thing. Because of the Good Samaritan Act, you know, we're pretty safe in this country.
Okay.
If you are stepping forward to help, that's all you're trying to do. You're just trying to help. You're not stepping forward to try and make it worse. So if all you do is call 999 and then just stay with them and talk to them, give that emotional care, that is still fabulous first aid. You know, even if you have no idea what's wrong and you don't feel like you could do anything about it, just talking to them and you know, making sure the emergency service is on our way is still great.
Definitely.
So on my courses, I'm just trying to, you know, give people that level of confidence that nearly always doing something is better than doing nothing. But also because I was a teacher in the past, I have actually got the full sort of the teaching qualifications. So I know how to structure sessions so that you can remember them. So I don't, you know, bombard you with lots of PowerPoints and you know, lots of technical terms. It's very much you know, I make my courses memorable, but I also make them engaging. So hopefully the feedback always says that they remember a lot more from my courses than previous ones.
Brilliant. So and if people want to find out more about courses, your website is worsleytraining.co.uk.
Exactly that. And I'm also Worsley Training on all social media, so Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, Twitter and things, so they can find out all the details there.
Okay. And you are gradually being able to restart your courses at the moment?
Yes, as of last Monday. So I taught my first course back was on Thursday in a school, a bunch of year sixes, nice little bubble in a massive sports hall, so we were able to stay very safe. And, you know, a lot that I've had to cancel, obviously, because of lockdown, or postpone because of lockdown, are all now getting rescheduled. And I'm hoping to start up public courses. I'm hoping to do one sort of early mid-July in the Marlborough area, as soon as I can find a venue that is open to hire, that is big enough and has an outdoor space so that we can all actually go outside a lot if the weather's kind. That's my plan.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for giving us some top tips on staying safe this summer. And
thank you for inviting me. It's good to talk.
We'll do another one in the winter when it's more cold stuff we need to talk about.
A bit of hypothermia. I can't really imagine that at the moment. Thank you, Penny.